So welcome to today's Greater Life CoffeeCast. And with today's focus being the pillar of hustle, here is my question. If someone you love was surrounded by a pack of rabid wolves intent on devouring them, and in your hand you held the leash of a dog that could potentially distract the wolves or attack the wolves sufficiently to give your loved one the time and space to escape. Now here is my question. Would you rather the dog on the end of that leash was a Yorkshire Terrier or a muscular Rottweiler? And you may be wondering, what on earth is this canine conundrum got to do with hustle? And particularly today, we're focusing on the dark side of hustle. And it is to recognize that at times, across all pillars of our life, we must be able to access our dark, our wild, our power. Because it is just a no-brainer that if you wanted your loved one to stand a chance against those wolves, unleashing a Rottweiler instead of a Yorkshire Terrier is going to give you that greater chance. And so for you, where might you be holding back your Rottweiler? Keeping them leashed. And by the way, this is not to diss Rottweilers at all. I know they're incredible, loving and friendly dogs. It's just that personally, if I had a Rottweiler that loved me, I'd rather that was a Rottweiler attacking the wolves than a Yorkshire Terrier. Even though the Yorkshire Terrier might put up a fierce amount of noise, that Yorkshire Terrier is not creating the impact a Rottweiler could. Okay? And this same goes for business. Is that there are times when this is not about being actually aggressive or violent. No, none of that. It's about recognizing that in our darkness, and by that I mean our shadows, those parts of us that we reject, that we dispossess, actually lies a source of power that can be the difference maker. And to land this in some concrete examples, can be the difference maker when perhaps you are sat across a table negotiating and simply you are not happy with the terms being proposed. And if you keep your Rottweiler leashed, you may accept terms that have long-term consequences you cannot avoid. Whereas if you let your Rottweiler off the leash and say, actually, no, this is not okay. These terms here are not respecting what we're bringing to the table. And unless they change, the deal is off. That actually the other person on the other side of the table may have included those things simply to test whether they could respect you. Whether actually they were peer-to-peer with a fellow Rottweiler, or whether they were perhaps about to get into business with a Yorkshire Terrier and they had no interest in doing that, unless the Yorkshire Terrier was willing to accept some ridiculous terms. Does this make sense? And there's a few ways we can really begin to dial into this. To look at for yourself, what are some of those emotions or ways of being that you think are not acceptable? Particularly in the world of business. And a really common one here is anger. Because particularly us, us Brits, we're terrible with anger. You look at other cultures and they're actually much better at being like, oh yeah, I'm really pissed off. And then it's done, right? Here we're like, no, I'm fine. Everything is okay. Like that stiff upper lip coming in, right? When inside we're like, I am seething, right? Actually, archetypally, anger can be the energy of the warrior to hold firm, clean boundaries, to say, actually, no, this is not okay. Or, hey, listen, you said you were going to do this thing and you haven't done this thing. Okay, how are we going to ensure that this doesn't happen in the future? So, anger is one of those ways that perhaps we might ignore the dark side of hustle. We might not let our darkness out. We might not embrace our darkness. And that is the thing here. It's not about being deceitful, devious, aggressive, violent. None of those ways we might sometimes associate with darkness. It's about embracing all of ourselves, all of our wildness, all of those things that actually sometimes aren't appropriate. Like some of that wildness, that darkness is not appropriate when we're trying to go to bed, we're trying to go to sleep. We need something calm chilled, peaceful. But there are going to be times when, in order to get the job done, in order to stay the course, there is a different quality of power that's going to be required. And one of the things I always share with people, that this idea of purpose, like, purpose, here's love and light and the unicorns and rainbows come down and give me my purpose. Well, actually, if you have not deeply inquired into your dark side, into those shadows, then I would challenge whether your purpose is deeply grounded. Because we've spoken on this podcast before about the idea of negative motivation, right? That actually, if you can find that sweet spot where the things you love, the things you're passionate about and that you're great at, those things that you love, if they can become part of a solution to things that you loathe, that is things that are not okay for you, where actually your warrior is like, hey, this is not okay, I'm not okay. And we talk about, of course, in the clarity and traction system of Greater Life, our 7-step process for greater engagement, greater connection, and greater conversion of sales. That first element of the system is commit to your cause. And so understanding where those edges of your darkness might meet your cause can be profoundly powerful and helpful. Because that darkness within is a source of power. It's a source of power that has us walk unashamedly to the top of the hill, the top of the mountain, the top of the roof, and to put out the rallying cry that says, hey, this is not okay, or this is what must change. That there is a quality of love held in your darkness that most will never go near. Because to embrace our darkness, to accept all that we are, can be at times a painful process, a challenging process, and yet the rewards out the other side are utterly profound. I remember a friend of mine saying, oh, but George, isn't life just suffering? And I thought to myself, well, no, not really. That's not been my experience. There have been painful moments. But when I am armed with the frame of reference that this is the process of me embracing and integrating my darkness, so that the whole of me may show up as a more loving, beautiful and brilliant soul, well then no, it's just the work to be done. So, today, how may you need to embrace your darkness, to discover your darkness and begin to integrate it, to love it, to accept it, so that the whole of who you are can show up and shine in the world.